while she's coming and get set up, I was gonna let you two know that we had a meeting with David Hodges from CFM on Thursday or Wednesday, I don't know, last week. And we did revise a little bit of how we look at a couple things. We asked him to put more emphasis on the lower Toutle, some of the erosion and that type of stuff, not forget about the upper, but more work on that. And with Army Corps, we asked him to, let's start the process and it would take a while, but to change the scope of what Army Corps is supposed to do, add something other than just flooding. I think he was gonna take a tour with Susan at some point in time and see some of the issues and how to word some of that. He is gonna work on an appropriation for if we have to build that road, the alternative route into there of million something.
You're gonna need a lot of candy bars.
Yeah, I know it. So I'm just telling you, it's changing just a little, and I don't want to change anything unless you guys know it's changed and you're good with some of the different little focus.
Yeah, that's always a balance you have between insignificant low-hanging fruit and significant low-hanging fruit versus if you could only get control of the budget overall from Congress, you would fix all these things.
Right. Okay.
You need a crystal ball too, right?
Yeah, yeah, mine's about, they'd always ask me, his mortgage, what are the rates gonna do? So I'd pull out this clear marble and say, well, I got my crystal ball here. Anyway, go ahead.
Good morning, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. We have 2 items on the agenda tomorrow. A contract completion letter to All Stripes for the installation and upgrade of curve warning signs. That was completed this summer and is just our closeout so we can release any remaining retainage and close out our paperwork with the feds.
That was a Fed grant we got, right?
Yes, that was a
And,
grant.
yeah.
And then the other item we have is the resolution to establish the CRP for the Chapman Road Drainage Improvement Project. So this is on Chapman Road about milepost .4. There's a spot when we have extremely large events that it starts flooding out a field and eventually threatens a home. So we had a study done on alternatives to make corrections. And so this is our setting up so we can start the engineering of that project.
This is the first time you brought it to us, right?
Yes, this is the first time.
And it's not something that's on the 6-year plan because it's not a road, it's drainage.
It is actually considered part of the 6-year plan because it's directly related to the road. The drainage of the road is causing the problem.
Okay.
By the Woodland High School towards the dike on the dike road, that is maintained by the county.
Yes, once you get past the right in that high school area is where the county maintenance begins.
And that's what was recently paved.
Oh, yeah, well, I believe we overlaid out there.
The high school's inside the city limits though, right?
Correct.
City limits kind of divide the road.
Just beyond the high school toward the river. Yeah.
Yes.
Who's in charge of that? Let's say. I rode my bicycle on that over the weekend, and there's quite a lip. The white line making the margin of the road has no room at all before you drop down about 2.5 inches onto a fairly narrow amount of gravel.
So they have
Can
not.
be pretty lethal on a bicycle.
Yes, they have not come back and shouldered rock. I did not realize that. I will pass that along, that they haven't done that, because usually when we do an overlay, afterwards, the road crew comes along and they build the gravel up next to it to prevent it from raveling and prevent bikes from having the 2-inch drop. But yes, we usually go back and do that. I'll make sure it's on their radar.
The county engineer always has the answers handy.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Susan.
Thank you. Y'all have a good day.
So Susan, I know that we have somebody that inspects the Silver Lake Dam, control dam, the outlet creek thing. Do we also run the flood control district? Is that part of the flood control district out of your office?
Excuse me. So the flood control district for Silver Lake, yes, we are the engineer and the administrative office for that one.
So we got your budget. Apparently,
Yes.
it says on the-
Yes, they did not make any changes this year. And a matter of fact, they dropped their millage rate for 2025. So, but they're just maintaining operations, which for them is mainly mowing and opening and closing the gate to make sure it's still working and checking their culverts regularly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy Funk Baxter. Oh, I want to give you a handout.
I prefer a hand up than a hand out. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going over the attachment for our budget amendment, which we will have a public hearing tomorrow for, and this is for the 2024 budget. And we did a pretty thorough, it's a total of 15 pages. I won't go over every single page, but we did a pretty thorough review of revenues and expenditures for revision. And I'm happy to report on the general fund. We pretty much, you'll see that the first line, we're increasing the ending fund balance by $746,000. And that's because we reviewed all the revenue streams, and we have some pretty substantial and significant revenue budget amendments to increase budget for revenue of about $1.2 million. So some of the major expenditure increases on general fund, facilities has an increase, and that is primarily due to the Hall of Justice repairs that have been happening for the last few months. And so they're needing additional budget capacity to cover those expenses and what they anticipate for the rest of the year. So that's like $190,000 just for that one area. We also have on the sheriff's office a little over $77,000 of increases, but a large portion of that has to do with some grants that they have received and some additional overtime that they're experiencing. And so, and then animal control, they added some additional, they added you had previously approved the hiring of a part-time animal control officer. And so here's the budget amendment to follow that up.
A
So,
quick question.
yes,
Was the overtime My understanding is for the first time in a long time, we have a full staff of deputies. And so the overtime is not necessarily going to carry through to 2025.
I don't anticipate that. They've already submitted their budget for 2025. Yes.
Okay.
And the animal control, the part-time was because we have two people.
And then we
Okay.
have, now we have the
Put it to
part-time to
cover.
help cover with coverage on vacation and things.
So that was the reason behind that.
Juvenile detention had a significant budget amendment, but they're trying to balance it within their own funds, with their own department line items. So they've had quite a few vacancies. Therefore, but as a result, they've had a significant amount of overtime. And so we're reducing direct labor and medical expenses because of those vacancies to help offset the overtime. And then they've also anticipated a reduction in extra help because they've been using existing personnel in the overtime capacity. So they're fairly large numbers, but it's, they're offsetting expenditures with reductions in other line items. The same thing for the prosecuting attorney. They're rehiring a part-time attorney. And so therefore, because of a vacancy, they have some additional funds there that they can move to the extra help line. The next one under non-departmental, these are some reductions in various line items. Because risk, we didn't anticipate that the risk pool would change their billing methodology. They're now billing they used to split their annual bill into two. Part of it would be due in October, about 75% of it. And then the other portion would be due in May. And now they're switching to a calendar year basis. And so their billing for October is for the full year. So we need additional budget capacity over in risk management to cover that. And so I need to ask permission to transfer $570,000 from non-departmental to the risk pool, to our risk account to cover that premium that's due. And so I'm anticipating that we'll be able to, and then next year, be able to return those funds to the non-departmental once we have all our billings done for 2025. So it's a timing difference that's created by this
So you won't,
change.
you won't get a building, what'd you say, May and October?
Yeah,
Yeah, so you
so
won't get a building in May. In
I won't.
2025, you'll get
Yeah.
another one in October. That'll be
Right.
for the whole year.
for the whole year, but they are actually going to give me a billing in May for what they call a stub year, because they're changing their billing methodology. So to a calendar year. So unfortunately, but I've accounted for that in our 2025 budget. So fully accounted for it. Yeah. The other increases are small. We have Superior Court. They received additional AOC grant for security projects. And so
Yeah.
we're accounting for that so that they can spend that at the Hall of Justice for additional cameras and door access codes systems. Then on the general fund on page 3, this is where we went through and analyzed all of the revenues in general fund. And so we've seen an increase in our investment earnings. But we also accounted for decreases as well. For example, I presented to you a couple of weeks ago that I believe our sales tax is going to come in less than what we had budgeted, about $500,000. So we're putting that in the budget amendment now. And we've taken that same number for our 2025 budget, reduced our sales tax. We have other expenses, other revenues that we're looking at for significant increases. For example, in the jail, we're seeing an increase in our what we budgeted, what we estimated originally for the Longview, for example, Longview daily jail charges, and we're increasing that by $390,000. We also have seen some grants and contracts that the jail has that we didn't have a budget for, and we're now placing a budget of $397,000 there.
What's the SG?
SG just stands for state grants.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you see FIG, that's federal.
so bottom line, just taking a look at all the line items, we're about 700, roughly $750,000 ahead of what we thought we were going to be.
Yeah, in the just in the jail alone. Mhm. And then, and so we continue that review over to page 4. So some smaller line items, but we did a very thorough review and look at all of our departments, general fund for their revenues, and made the corrections. And so grand total of $1.2 million.
Being in October, you're feeling pretty comfortable with these numbers?
Right,
through
and
the end of the
that's,
year?
yeah, so that's why I kind of wait till the third quarter so that we have some trend analysis that we can see. And in some of the cases where we receive funds only once a year, we have them in by now. And then it also allows us, by doing that, it allows us to look at what we're forecasting out for 2025. So it helped us work with the departments to look at their 2025 revenue at the same time. So.
So I see you zeroed out the LFOs, the legal financial obligations the courts have given up on.
This was in the clerk's office, and
Right.
this is, yeah. So I think we had placed some placeholders there for a while, and they were carried over in the budget and probably shouldn't have been.
It is interesting when decisions are made by the court and they issue a fine. They issue the fine knowing full well we're not going to collect it, which is unfortunate, but
Yeah.
they're
so-
operating under rules from the state Supreme Court that to require extensive investigations for determining whether they can afford to pay the fine. You can't charge them a fine if they can't afford to pay.
Yeah.
So rather than do the investigations, they just don't fine.
And then as we continue on, we also did some review of other funds. That was all the general funds. And then, for example, y'all had, when we had talked about the financial report last, maybe it was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, our timber excise tax on road fund was, we had underestimated. And so this trues up, adjusts to actuals. And so that's the $733,000 or almost $34,000 to the road fund for the timber excise tax. They also correspondingly increased ending fund balance for that revenue, basically. So there's the offset. So revenues offset expenses.
I notice revenue for traffic infractions is up 60 grand.
Yeah, that's back on page 4.
Right.
Mhm,
Page 3.
page 3. Yep, so like I said, we looked at every single department.
Maybe that's more revealing of me than anybody else.
You're not contributing to this account, are you?
I take the fifth.
So in some cases, the increase, like for example, veterans, it's increasing, the revenue's increasing because the investment earnings are exceeded what we've originally budgeted. And then they're offsetting expenses. So really, as far as then some of the next ones, we've got human services. They just did a very thorough review of their revenues and expenses. In total, it's a $24,000 change. Not very significant. And as I said, it's mostly increase in their investment earnings over what we originally had budgeted. Most people were conservative on those budgets. Then the mental health revenue, investment earnings are significantly higher, but we trued up the mental health tax, and that was a $55,000 decrease. I'm sorry, I'm on page 6 too. And so on mental health, behavioral health, we have slightly increases in income, and that was offset some with some increases in expenses. So I'm going to skip to anything that's significant.
Kathy, I'm sorry, I'm behind you a little bit. The chemical dependency mental health revenue. You have that listed as an expenditure. If the mental health tax is an expenditure, that confuses me. So everything else is for expenses, but all of a sudden you have a tax treated as an expenditure.
Well,
Do you see where I'm talking?
so we first show the revenue, any changes in revenue, and then we show any changes in expenses right after that.
So we're spending 752,000.
Well, that's revenue. That's what we've actually brought in for the mental health for the first 3 months of the year, because that was the tax that we sunset. So we wanted to true up the revenues to equal what we've actually brought in.
It's just maybe that's just out of place as a revenue. Everything else on that page are expenditures. Mileage, overtime,
Yeah.
labor.
Well, we tried it on the different funds where there's, like, for example, you go to page 5, road funds, the first one. So we try to show the revenue first, if there's any changes, and then the changes in expenses. And so we do that for if there are changes in revenues, and then there's changes in expenses.
Thank you.
So they're really, and then page, we're
Just
also,
another question of ignorance. There are entries that by title are duplicated. What's the significance there? Like tuition and registration, advertising, photocopies, page 6.
Page 6, what happens is if there's a different bars for it will show up as 2 different lines.
I thought I checked that, but I missed it. There's a 6 and there's an 8. Okay, I got it.
Mhm. A lot of numbers on this.
Yeah. If they're in the middle, they're harder to spot.
Yeah, so. And then,
This is, the VARS code is a good example of where the government, we're here to help you. And it's
We're here to
totally
help you.
unintelligible.
It should be like a 3-page document instead of.
Well, she's memorizing the code. You've got most of the numbers down now, but
I've learned,
yeah, it's,
I know which one is law enforcement too, which is one of our larger ones.
Well,
And-
as soon as you get it down, would you let us know so we can tell them it's okay to change them now?
Oh, they'll probably change them. Most of the health and human services, you'll see there's an actual extra document for you. It's towards the back, and that explains all of their changes. They did a very good job and very thorough of explaining where and why they're making most of these changes. And so that they've explained all of those. And they're by far, they're like, start on page 6 and they continue through page 9. And so they've explained all of their changes. And then,
you see the $440,000 income for the opioid cases, the lawsuits.
yeah, the opioid funds, they're truing up what we've actually received so far this year. And then they placed the rest of it in, they adjusted the expenditure budget to increase ending fund balance. And I think that was on page,
So
that was on page 11. Mhm.
on the low-income housing and O&M, there's a $4.6 million expenditure. I'm assuming those are the contract awards to Housing Authority, to CAP and Campus Towers. And the one that is adjusted out is probably the Kelso building that hasn't started yet.
I need to find that,
That's over on page 9, sorry.
page 9.
About 1/3 up from the bottom.
Well, mine is a little, my page numbers may be off now that I look at this. Because,
Page 9 out of 15. That helps.
yeah, so that is, you're looking at the line that's for low income, where they've changed professional services and contracts
Correct.
and decrease of a total of $1 million. And that they've explained that they said they're decreasing professional services because of project not yet billed. And they're also decreasing professional services for the Department of Commerce not yet spent. And they believe those will be spent in 2025. Um, I don't think there's any other ones that are significant. Expo Center and the Conference Center, they went through their expenditures and made some adjustments. But in total, they're not very significant. They also increased on the Silver Lake Gift Shop, they increased their revenues.
You're on
Page 12.
thank you.
They've increased their revenues, but they've also increased some of their expenditures and their ending fund to account for an ending fund balance increase of $60,000. So. And then I'll jump to page 13 for another pretty significant change. And this has to do with, we made a change to information technology. When we were doing the cost allocations, I thoroughly analyzed their fund balance and discovered that their fund balance had been understated for their operating account to the tune of about $1.5 million. And then we're now turning around and we're going to transfer that excess fund balance over to the reserve account because we want to maintain a small fund balance in the operating account, but make sure that the reserve account has the vast majority of the fund balance. So it's available for capital replacement, renewals, and things like that. And so their fund balance will go up from a little over $3 million to almost $5 million when it's fully adjusted. And then we also have the transfer in that I'm reporting for risk management of $570,000 so that they have the budget capacity to pay the insurance premiums assessments that are coming due this month in October. And so we're utilizing both the fund balance and that transfer in to increase the line for insurance premiums by $1 million to cover the billing. And then another item on page 15 to bring to your attention is the PFD, because they're part of our budget. They're accounted for as part of Callowitz. They had a item for their theater that they needed to pay, a repair, was a construction related invoice, about a little over $200,000. And so they're utilizing part of their fund balances to transfer and make sure that they have enough budget capacity to cover that invoice. And that's what the last page is. And that's all my budget amendments. There's a lot of them.
Next one in late January? Or for February, I guess it's usually in February.
Yeah.
After the January bills get paid.
Typically we have something in
You plan on being
February.
around, right?
Not me.
Not I.
We, and then again, sometimes we have one in December, if there's things that we find, but I'm hoping this will be the last budget amendment for 2024.
Yeah. Thank you, Kathy. And
I
thank
appreciate
the
the background.
departments. Yeah. HHS did a good job of
Yeah, they
explaining
did.
all their changes. So
Yeah,
that was
they had,
good to see.
they had a lot of changes, so they put together a nice little info packet on it.
Yeah.
So it was very helpful. Any other questions for me?
I think so. There may be some tomorrow during public hearings. So.
Yeah.
Not necessarily from us, but from the audience.
Yeah, we'll be ready.
Okay. Okay. We can, I see Jessica in here. Do you gentlemen have anything miscellaneous, or we move into human resources? Okay. Jessica, why don't we just do that?
Good morning, Jessica Warren, Human Resources. I have a request for 2 executive sessions under performance of a public employee.
Time estimate? I know that's always the
Uh,
question, right?
Let's say 20 total
20 for
both, yeah.
both, okay. Okay, we will adjourn to exception for performance of a public employee, 2 cases of it, 20 minutes total, okay. Hey, back for an executive session. No decisions were made. I'll turn it over to Jessica.
Hello again, Jessica Warren, Human Resources. I have a request to fill from Public Works. They'd like to fill an assistant county engineer position at salary grade 605.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that.
Okay,
Thank you. And then the last item I have is a request to fill from the Event Center, requesting to fill an event coordinator position. The employee is no longer with the county. And this is a currently budgeted position.
Okay with that.
Okay with that. I do have sort of a administrative bureaucratic question. Kelly, are you listening? The
Yes.
question is well, maybe it's Bailey or Kelly anyhow. The question is, do we need to have this in terms of a motion in order for it to go in the minutes that people can see that these things were approved? And it's just a matter of how you want to do the minutes, as far as I'm concerned.
You usually mention when we do HR decisions.
Yeah, we put in the minutes that Jessica asked if the sometimes you guys do motions.
But you fill in, if it were a formal motion, there'd be an action. Do we do that even with these? Action approved?
I do put approved in action.
Oh, in which case,
Yeah,
I'm fine.
I think we're good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just couldn't remember.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Anything else? No.
I say, my comment about the striping and the repaving on Dyke Road, I was really debating whether to bring that up or not, but I was very impressed with the quick answer that that's in fact standard practice. I did not know that, and that's kind of nice.
Well, it sounds like you brought to her attention that they didn't fulfill their,
Well, that's the other thing too. I know I've gotten, I'm sure all of us have gotten complaints in the order not of, did you know, but like I got a phone call from him that begins with, "You dumbasses," and it's like, we can't know everything.
Right.
So the next time you have a hankering for bicycling, take your bike to the city of Longview. It is now crisscrossed with bike lanes, all freshly painted.
Crisscrossed in a sensible way, or?
No.
See,
There-
that's,
there's-
There's the parking lane, the bike lane, and then the traffic lane, and then the turn lane. So they
And-
have,
There's one section, is it on 20th or where is it where you
kind
go-
of crosses over.
you go down and the bike lane's on your right and all of a sudden it crosses over in front and then it's on the left?
Because there's supposed to be a right turn lane. That's
Yeah.
why they do that. And,
Yeah.
yeah,
it-
it's,
you,
it is interesting.
you know what is?
And I'm waiting to see the second person on a bicycle.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's the other thing. You put something there. You build it and they will come? Maybe. Around here, that's a questionable thing. But a bicycle is supposed to travel like the rules of the road, just like a car. And I follow that straightforwardly, which means if I have to make a left turn and there's a left lane, I'm actually occupying the left lane. And I get yelled at for doing that.
Get out of the way, right?
Yeah, and it's like, and I never take the right away from a car, and I try and make it as useful for a car to get by. Cyclists are from A to Z. You got the cyclist is coming down the street on the sidewalk in the other direction, against traffic. The police should give that person a citation. And whenever a bicyclist violates a rule, it should be a citation.
Well, all along Ocean Beach Highway, there is an extra wide sidewalk, which is designated the bike lane. And there are hedges right up next to the sidewalk. So there's a driveway and you can't see anybody coming until it's too late. I mean, it's
It's
a crazy.
It's suicide to
Yeah.
ride on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
If you're on a Sunday stroll with your tricycle and you're
Yeah,
6 years
It's
old,
different.
please stay on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
anyway, transition time in Longview.
Yeah, I was just talking to my son from San Diego, and the entire coastal area of San Diego is just peppered with e-bicycles.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
You go down to the beach and you'll see a rack where you had never seen before, and it's nothing but e-bicycles. There are e-bicycles there that are tandem with a kid seat on it. I saw once, last time I was there, which was 3 years ago now, a tandem, a lady got on it and she had 2 kids and she was carrying 2 kids plus all the beach paraphernalia on the electric bicycle. It was really eye-opening.
I may not be looking in the right places, but it seems to me that the only time I see EVs using one of the plug-in chargers is at the PUD lot, which is kind of like, okay, well, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Don't seem very often anywhere else.
It's
Oh,
true.
well.
Yeah.
There are increasing numbers of electric cars, so.
I find a hybrid is kind of an attractive concept. I'm a little worried that in general, we're trying to press battery operated things too hard. The time will come. It's just a matter of safety and energy density, and I don't think those have been quite resolved, except for an e-bicycle
I think I'm more.
or a
concerned-
hybrid, actually.
I'm more concerned with the move toward driverless cars. That seems to me.
You
to be
have no
just
faith
scary.
in our software engineering.
Well, they're only as good as the programmers.
Yeah.
You know, I
True,
mean,
but.
That's true.
But you realize when you get on an airplane, most all the flying is done by computer.
That's true.
That's true.
And by the way,
But they don't have to worry about right turn lanes. Unless they're on the ground. then
and they don't worry about bicyclists sneaking around a hedge.
Just a few seagulls every once in a while. Going through an inch.
Oh, yeah, that could be bad.
That could be bad. Or apparently doors being sucked out the windows. All right. We done?
All right, we're done. We will adjourn. Thank you.